Good morning and welcome to Sips of Sanity. I'm Kelly.
Good morning, I'm Karen.
I believe if you're looking at us today, watching us on YouTube, you're going to know this setup very well and know that we have a very special guest here today. This is a first time for us for Sips of Sanity, which is super exciting. We have Carmen Theobald on the show. She's doing all 5 shows with us talking about the roles of the master herder. Carmen, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here for Sips of Sanity. I can't even tell you.
Oh, good.
Well, we're happy to have you. I want to say that for some people, they know that you're going to be talking in relation to horses. And that yesterday, in a client session, one lady's horse was her cat. So, yeah. So hang in there if you don't have a horse in your life, because Carmen is still going to talk about all kinds of lessons and all kinds of emotional intelligence. And you might think, I don't have that, but I have it with my cat. I have that with my dog.
Absolutely. And honestly, today, or the 5 Sips of Sanities this week, is going to be super applicable to human life, even if you have no experience with animals at all. I will be including a couple of horse analogies here and there because I just can't help myself. But definitely, this is applicable to everyone because these 5 roles are something that we all have access to.
Cool.
So just a tiny bit of background. I know I've done a couple of shows with you guys. I think they're episode 200 if people want to listen, and 230, November.
It was November 30th for sure.
Perfect. Yes. So thanks so much if you guys have listened to them. If you want a little bit more background, you can check me out there. But just to know, I am a farrier, which means I take care of horses' feet. And I also have Horse Sense North, which is a business where I coach people through horse-inspired wisdom and also equine facilitated learning. So it can be done with or without horses. And it's really fun because it helps us become better people, basically.
Oh, thank God you're on the planet.
That's good.
Same to you guys. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so you've structured Sips of Sanity this month.
I have, yeah.
Take it away.
Okay, so the 5 Roles of a Master Herder was originally created by Linda Kohanov. She has the book, The 5 Roles of a Master Herder. And I'm going to be going through one role for each day of this month's Sips of Sanity.
Love it. Very palatable. People kind of can get their note cards out and know how to structure their notes as well.
Exactly. And I love organization too. So I'm gonna give you guys quite a bit of information, and I'm actually gonna list the behaviors associated to each role. There's gonna be unproductive and productive behaviors associated to each role for every day. And what I want people to know before they listen to them is that you're gonna hear parts of yourself maybe that are really great and that are not so great. And it's important to remember that these roles are not who you are. Really, these roles are aspects of yourself and they're just behavior. And we have always the opportunity to change our behavior. So learning more about these roles is a way to gain that knowledge for the opportunity, for the awareness, and develop the courage to actually step into the roles that we may not be so comfortable in.
Excellent. That was so well worded.
Thank you.
It was. I think about the people who say, oh, just take me as I am. Love me for who I am. Love is unconditional. And what we're saying is no, that we can change and that actually growth requires that we do.
Absolutely. And I love what Kelly said a bunch of times on the episodes too about crowding in, because that really fits with this model. When you hear the unproductive behaviors that you may be participating in, it's not about, okay, I have to just stop those. What's going to help you move out of them is to gain access to the roles that you're not using, because those unproductive behaviors will actually just start to fade away when you start to become more balanced and more working toward being a master herder.
Lovely.
Love it.
Okay, so today's role is going to be the role of the dominant.
Okay.
And we talk about the dominant first because it's the most often misused or abused. And it's also the most often abdicated. So people, because they've seen it used so badly, they don't want to step into it. So they completely avoid it. And it's actually an incredible role when we know how to use it in its productive form.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
So when you talk about abdicating this role, would this apply to women or females as a gender? where we have been called bossy instead of assertive or leaders?
100%.
Okay. Because we're teaching a whole new generation that bossy is great. And I mean, they're taking back the term to actually mean assertive and leader. Okay,
Yeah,
so just
absolutely.
clarifying. So all you mamas, and I'm thinking of Sherry, who are trying to help your children know how to take on these roles in a healthy way, this is one of those.
I like how they're taking back the language, and that they're saying that how we had a negative connotation to the language, that we are now giving it the positive to enhance who the woman is or the person.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you said that, because it is more often than not associated to women and females, but a lot of men get this too, or avoid this role. I know many men who are afraid of this role. And even if they display some of the behaviors, they're actively trying to not step into it for several reasons. So it doesn't really matter what gender you are. It's just about what kind of person you are and have become through things that have been modeled to you, what you've been taught. And again, just your behaviors, not actually who you are.
And I think this speaks to why on so many shows and in so many sessions, we refer men to Beverly Angel's book, The Nice Girl Syndrome.
Yeah.
Because this is, if you are trained to be a nice person, whatever your gender might be, then dominant would be something that you think is not appropriate.
Exactly.
Or is mean, or is never seen as likable.
Yes, exactly. As a kid, I was actually called Bossy Boots. That was one of my nicknames. And it's really served me well in this lifetime. I've had to learn how to balance the roles, and it's been forced on in my life to learn how to balance them for a variety of reasons. I've been through some pretty big events that have changed my life, and that's all really helped me become more well-rounded. It's a constant journey. I'm not saying I'm a master herder, but I'm aiming to be one. And having some of those dominant qualities myself has really helped me as a farrier, because I work with many, many, many dominant horses. And it's not that dominant horses are bad. Just like dominant people who are strong in this role, they're not bad. But I need to have enough access to this role myself to be able to employ it effectively and with calmness and a caring attitude, so that I can actually get into this place of trust with horses. And so when I work with a horse that's very dominant, they might be very pushy. They may even act aggressively. And my life is actually in danger when I'm working with them if I don't know how to work with them well. So learning how to use this role and continuing to learn how to use this role has been a huge gift in my life with them, and of course with people too, because there are many, many people who don't use this role well, and I have to learn how to navigate those situations.
So true.
I love that you just so nonchalantly slipped in that many people don't use this well.
So from
kind.
Absolutely.
And we have to know that we can't avoid every situation.
Yes.
I think this is something that people do. They try to avoid it for their whole life. And so if they avoid it at a young age and they can get away with that, they can slide under the radar when they're 5 or when they're 10 or 15 or 20. They don't realize that they're setting themselves up to never get the tools to be able to change that pattern. And so now if they have a life expectancy of 93, do the math. They now have, 70 some years ahead of them where they only have the tools to repeat always flying under the radar. And let's face it, that's not going to work for 7 decades.
Absolutely. And we may quit jobs. We may get out of relationships because we're avoiding having to interact with this role. But sometimes we just can't avoid it. What if you have a child who's really strong in this role? How are you going to parent well if you can't access this role yourself?
Well, you don't.
Yes, exactly. Which is so unfortunate. For our
everyone
planet.
involved.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take that opportunity to actually talk about the specifics of the roles, because I know Sips of Sanity is a shorter, punchier version, so here we go.
She even uses our language. It's so great.
Can you tell I've been listening to a show for a couple years? Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the productive roles or the productive behaviors associated with the dominant role first. The dominant really exhibits this direct and protect orientation. And it's able to do that while still respecting other people's gifts and their own space. So we're able to, the dominant role can step into that ability to tell people what to do, to be very directive, and also be very protective of the family, of the herd, whatever the herd means, the community, the workplace, the team, the friend circle. So having the ability to be directive and protective in this mutually respectful way. Mm-hmm. Naturally excels at setting appropriate boundaries with others.
Love that.
And if it's not natural, that's okay, because you practice enough, it becomes natural. So I'm not saying innate.
Cool. I like that differentiation. Mm-hmm. This is like word porn.
It so is. That's so good, Kelly.
Go on.
They break up fights between family members or herd members. So if there's a fight between two members of your work team, you need someone who's gifted in the dominant role sometimes to be able to break up that disagreement. Mm-hmm. Or at home, perhaps you have two brothers who are actually brawling. You have to have a parent or a sibling, if they're able to, step in with that dominant behavior and break up that fight.
Mm-hmm. And you're referring to it as in a positive way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all the positive ones first. These are all the productive forms
I
first.
realize. I'm just trying to remind people, because if they're in their head thinking, oh yeah, my dad used to do that. He stopped the fights, but he spanked both of us. Or he whipped both of us, or he hit us with a stick. I just want people to be able to hear what you're saying and then think about it in their own terms and go, oh no, that was not the healthy. Carmen's talking about productive. So in a productive way, that would mean they have the tools to be calm about it, not to respond in a verbally abusive or physically abusive way, that it's all positive towards both people who are struggling with conflict.
Exactly. And the reason why it goes awry in extreme examples like that, as well as just subtle ways, is because people don't have enough access to the other roles. So if someone doesn't have enough of the nurture companion, for instance, which we'll talk about on day 3, they're not going to have that caring and intuitive empathy with who they're dealing with to be able to mitigate the power of the dominant role.
Love it. Just going to keep... I wish I had a love it button.
We should get buttons like Ellen does, just on her burning questions episodes.
I love that.
Oh, that would assault people as they're listening.
Yeah, good for video, maybe not so much audio. All right. They can motivate stubborn or lazy members of the herd. So a form of dominance that is in the unproductive category, which we'll talk about, is dominance through resistance. So when people are overtly resisting or even subtly resisting, but they know what they're doing, it's a behavior that is an avoidance tactic. It's their way of asserting their control or their power without being in your face about it. You need a certain amount of dominance to be able to push them through that, push them out of it.
Right, or someone could sit on the couch for decades. Or
Yes.
not pick up after themselves, or not get a job, or...
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm so glad you said that, because all of these roles, I'm talking about them more as a way to use them with others, but absolutely they apply to how we treat ourselves. So if we don't have enough of that dominant energy for our own motivation, our own decision to step into action and do something, absolutely.
Well, interesting, because I think about self-talk at that point. Because if I'm sitting on the couch and I'm maybe I just woke up in a blah kind of mood, nothing's really gone wrong, I could sit there and beat myself up for not getting up off the couch and think, oh, I'm dominant. But it hasn't actually motivated me to do anything. I've just shamed myself, which is actually going to make me want to resist my own self-talk that much more.
Absolutely. And so it's not that we want to have a dominant self-talk. It's not that we want to have nurture companion self-talk, so we're people-pleasing ourselves. We want to become master herders in our self-talk and with others.
Love it. Ding.
Dominance in a productive form will effectively challenge aggressors in a social system, holding them accountable without alienating them.
Oh, key.
Imagine if our law system was like this.
Yes. Oh, and it's so not. But yes. Or politics.
And on the rare occasion that we do see someone displaying these qualities of the role so well, doesn't it just make us take a moment and go, wow?
Yeah. You know what? I think about Obama when you talk about that, being inclusive, where the solution is to bring everybody into it, including the people that instigate the problem or want to perpetuate it. So you're talking about a very inclusive environment.
Absolutely. Because the whole point of master herder is being able to use these roles for the good of the herd.
Right. Carmen, it's really coming to my mind about the unions. It's like it's playing on me today as you're talking about this. I wish I could package you up and gift you to the teachers' union and say you really need to know, to the union heads, and not just them, to the politicians as well, but the unions that represent all of these teachers, to be able to stay in that place of being inclusive so that the solutions are good for everyone in the province.
Well, the most frustrating part is that you can package her up and gift her to these companies. She does workshops, which we will shamelessly plug at the end of this. It's just that these people are not in a solution-focused mindset. They're running on how we've done things in the past. They're running on, if we bring her in, will this take away from my power and my control? She's a whole pretty package.
Thank you both very much. And I really hope that I can be part of the solution for many of our challenges one day, or even just my little piece of it and maybe the ripples effect. So whoever's listening, you know, you're part of the solution just by learning a little bit more about this, because we're in changing times. We're in a very different world than we ever have been. And we need a different approach that makes everyone feel like they have that connectivity and that safety. And learning how to be master herders for ourselves and for others can really impact that.
Well, I like what you're saying, because if you don't know how to be a master herder for yourself, then it's very difficult to be part of that healthy team.
It's impossible.
Got her. Yeah, you're on the outside of the solution.
Yes. And I'm just going to say again here, because I think a lot of people get worried. It's like, oh my gosh, well, I'm not a master herder. Does that mean I'm just a detriment, or do I have to be perfect? And it's not about perfection. It's about practice.
Right.
It's just practicing a little bit. When we weren't practicing that 5 minutes ago, we're automatically so much better for everyone around us and for ourselves.
Well, and our own anxiety then decreases. I keep saying this to people. When you increase your emotional intelligence, your anxiety decreases, your depression decreases. You're giving people more tools to come out of their own unhealthiness or imbalances.
Yes. I'm going to keep going here because I want to make sure we fit all the different rules in.
We actually own the show, so you can go as long as you want.
That's true.
People on Patreon are like, yes.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thank you. All right. So the last really productive aspect of the dominant role I want to talk about is the ability to drive off predators who actually don't belong in the social system. So it's different from the predator role, which we'll talk about on the last day. This is the ability to, put someone in jail, or to tell a member of your family, like, you have to leave now.
Yeah, I had my moment.
Yeah.
I'm a master herder, I think, or learning.
And yeah, so it's really great to give ourselves that pat on the back, or have a good person in our life do it for us.
Yes.
To help us recognize when we are using these roles well, because we have so many examples of them being used poorly. So the more that we can pay attention to when they're being used well, especially when we recognize it in ourselves, then we'll have a little bit of encouragement and actual body memory of what it's like to employ them in their productive form.
Oh, I love it.
Word porn.
Body. Yes. Body memory. If anybody out there is having fun and just doodling down all the word porn words, send them to me.
Oh, I love it.
I want to say too, I know we're definitely running over at this point, which is totally fine. I want to say for everyone who does actually make notes on Sips of Sanity, and I know for myself, I assign Sips of Sanity to my life coaching clients and they make their notes as well. One of the really exciting features that we're offering this month is that our habit tracker is going to be made by Carmen. So you're making great notes already, but we're actually going to hand you reflective questions and the habit tracker based on the master herder this month.
If you're in that right tier.
Yes.
Woohoo.
Yes, it has to be in that tier.
Very exciting.
Okay, take it away.
All right. So now we're going to talk about the unproductive behaviors. These are the ones we'd really rather not see. So dominants use intimidation as a management tool. They exhibit a strong sense of entitlement. Sometimes attacks others for no reason or very little reason. And this is really to keep everyone a little bit on edge because it's like a power play. It's kind of fun for people who are especially strong in this role if they don't have the balance of the other roles to navigate this well. It's like they get a little bit of an energetic rush from making other people react to them by a slight glance even. That makes them feel pretty darn good sometimes.
Oh, even just a huff.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It's training. I always refer to it as training.
Yes.
That when people behave in those ways and they're eliciting a response of fear and control, they're training you. So a husband or a wife or whatever, doesn't matter what sex, coworker, friend groups do it. They train the other people in order to keep control and to keep their position.
And I'm also going to throw in that it's a test.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm going to talk about horses first, and I think this applies to people, but with horses, they're always concerned about their safety. They are prey animals. And so a horse that's strong in the dominant role often ends up being, the first one who's allowed to do all these things in the herd, but they're also the first one that's going to have to drive off a predator. So if they're testing the other herd mates with their dominant games, and the other herd mates cannot match that power and meet them in that game in a healthy and even more empowered way, then that dominant horse that's playing those games is going to know, well, they don't have my back. If I can push them around, then they can't keep me safe. And this applies to people too.
Right,
and
yeah.
I'm not excusing people's poor behavior, but I'm giving another aspect to it because there's more and more science confirming that we are just as concerned about safety in every single way, in our brain, in our body, in our nervous system. Everything is wired for either connection or the safety responses when we're not safe. So polyvagal theory and looking at how our reptilian brains function and all these different aspects are showing us that it's really, really, really important for us to feel safe. So if someone who's strong in the dominant role can have a power over situation with those around them, they're not going to feel like any of those people can actually have their back.
Yeah. And I think we see that in our relationships, that if you come up to me and you start gossiping about a mutual friend we have, I can sit there and just take part in it, or I can really look at you and think, oh, what's being said when I'm not around if this is her behavior?
Absolutely. Now, that's going to be a little bit more in the nurture companion role that we're going to see some of that if we're just looking at it with structured with these roles.
Okay.
But you do need the dominant behavior to stop that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So the motivation might be a little different for the one who's coming to you to gossip, but nonetheless, we still need that dominant role to be able to put an end to the unproductive behavior.
Cool.
All right. So because of all those things, those who are strong in the dominant role and not mitigated by the others are going to prefer that others yield. And they're actively striving to make others look away or move away as a power play. So tied into exactly what we're talking about. Refusing to move when others ask, that dominance through resistance thing. Is obsessively directive. Seems to enjoy controlling others' behavior and herding them around.
Oh, Carmen, this just brings me to a whole thing that just occurred in my Zumba class where a person in the class took it upon themselves to tell me where I'm supposed to stand and dance in the class. And I'm not referring to the teacher. And also, when I'm in conversations with different people in the class, this person corrects me, even though they don't know what I'm talking about. And they're not even in the group that I'm speaking to.
And that is such classic immature dominant behavior.
Just an example there.
Yeah, and I so in one of my previous positions in managing, had a subordinate, and I'll also say a coworker, who had the dominant energy that made the owner run around with all these looks and these huffs and puffs and the resistance to whatever was, asked of them. And it was just, they kept everyone on edge and literally had the owner running around.
Absolutely. Just because you own something on paper or you have a leadership position doesn't mean that you're not deeply affected by how other people are employing these roles.
Okay.
Yeah. So in a crisis or novel situation, they tend to increase panic and decrease thoughtful problem solving.
Yep.
Because they're using all of these immature forms of the dominant role,
Yeah.
they're used to expending all of this unnecessary energy and making people feel uncomfortable. So when something really stressful happens, they're the last person that people are going to want to go to for help, which is really unfortunate because sometimes their skills are exactly what people need in those situations, but they've made people feel so unsafe for so long, and they may continue to exhibit that behavior in the stressful situation, that people aren't going to recognize the qualities that are important of the dominant role that are needed at that time.
Geez, Carmen, or they could know that and just feel stuck.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to mention here, again, in a different way, that we still need to have compassion for the people who are displaying all of these unproductive behaviors and recognize that we play a role in them bringing out this unproductive side. Because when we don't step into a role that we don't like, we're actually encouraging them to overuse a role because we rely on them to perform some of those functions that we do want. And it's not giving them the opportunity to step into the other roles, so they're bringing out more of the shadow side because they're using it too often.
So, I mean, if you're listening on Patreon and you've been following all of the other shows, you're going to sit there and be like, this is the universal law of accountability.
Yeah.
This is also the universal law of responsibility and integrity and honesty.
Absolutely. They tend to reinforce the status quo rather than problem solve with innovative solutions. And they can pit people against each other. And that often results, of course, in divisions.
And they sit fine.
Absolutely.
They somehow get out fine on everything.
And it's almost a game.
Dr. Ramani from another podcast series would say that this is narcissistic. Some of this behavior is narcissism, and that they get out fine and they do these things consistently because they lack, I'll say, now hear it out, she'll say this better than me, but they don't have the same sense of shame we do over these things.
I think that is true. I'm not going to discount what she's saying.
Yeah.
I'm just going to also bring in the fact that I think the situation may be very different with those people if they were surrounded by people who were more master herder like. So the environments that we grow up in, that we live in, that we work in, they have a huge impact on the other parts of ourselves that may or may not come through because of the roles that people are potentially not comfortable stepping into as well.
Yep. I think she would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I say that because I think our society is so easy to throw around the word narcissist or narcissism and as a diagnosis. And it can be a dangerous thing because, again, it makes people locked into a behavior.
This is why Nina Brown actually refers to them as the self-absorbed.
Yeah.
Because it's not a diagnosis, it's an actual behavior.
Yes. And finally, exhibiting that my way or the highway attitude in most things.
Eloquent addition.
Okay, so those are really the list of behaviors associated to the dominant role, productive and unproductive. And I hope that listeners can see themselves and others in these roles whether they're unproductive or productive. This is not about shaming. This is not about making you feel bad. It's just about awareness and learning what these roles entail.
Yeah, and like any other episode we've put out, you listen with humility. You don't listen to think that we are trying to shame you. You have to be able to see the hard parts of yourself to know what the next step is to change.
Exactly.
So, Carmen, before I do my spiel of wrapping things up, we want to help promote you. We want to help promote your business and your workshops. So can I hand that over to you?
I would love that.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So I'm actually doing a 2-day master herder workshop with a co-facilitator of mine from Nova Scotia. Her name is Gail Boone. We're doing this in May near Huntsville, Ontario. So if anyone is interested in really learning more about these roles in depth, but getting experience working with horses to develop your ability in all of these roles, other than the predator, then this could be a really exciting opportunity for you. So if you want to check that out, or if you want to check me out a little bit more, you can visit my website, horsesensenorth.com.
Very cool. So obviously you're providing the horses.
Yes.
Okay. And is this a 1-day, a 2-day?
This is a 2-day workshop.
Okay.
And lunch is included. You can find the price and a bunch of other details on the website itself, but I think it's May 16th and 17th. And there's only 5 people. So this is a really small group so that everyone has significant horse time and ability to really integrate the material in a very personalized, focused way.
Cool.
So do you have to already have experience with horses to be part of this?
Thank you for asking that. No experience necessary whatsoever. And it's only safe, non-riding horse activities that help us bring out these different abilities in ourselves.
Very cool. And just a reminder too that Reactin or any allergy medication typically lasts up to 12 or 24 hours. So if you're anything like me, you can still attend the workshop.
Excellent.
Good. Okay, so if you have questions or comments about today's show, you can email us at info@bysarlo.com. If you are listening on Patreon today, thank you so much for your support. We very much appreciate that. If you're listening with the general public, we're so glad that you came and that you're interested. The rest of the shows are available on patreon.com/bysarlo. We are back tomorrow with day 2.